All right, John, we are recording. So why don't you go ahead and for those who watch and partake in this, give any context to who John is, some background, some whatever that looks like.
Yeah, I am John Welz, 33 years old. Own CrossFit Aries in Wilmington, Massachusetts. I've owned it for 4 years. Prior to that, I worked at a construction management superintendent position, building all the crazy buildings in Boston when the residential boom started to happen. That was a previous part of my life that I wasn't super happy with. And then I decided to make that change and buy my gym and build it up from there and just create a space for people to grow as people, just like I did. And recently married to an awesome wife who is an optometrist. And we've basically built our life together over the last 8 years and just trying to have more conversations with people, learn a little bit more about ourselves as humans, as business owners, and shining a realistic light on the things that we deal with.
I love it. I love it. And myself to spin it back, and then how we met and how we know each other and how we became good friends. Shawn McQueen, I own a CrossFit gym in Hudson, New York, 12 years. Before that, was in some school for nutrition. Before that, did 4 years in the military, was Security Forces Raven. 37, I am the happy beloved partner to my better half, Brittany, and our blended family with her two kids and my pup and our five chickens. Life is beautiful here in upstate New York. I like to think of myself as a lifelong student of personal development. I'm sure you relate to that as well. Just continual growth and personal progress. We both owning gyms are in a business mentorship group where we're supported in this group and are progressing our skills and tools and we met Las Vegas.
Las Vegas. We were sitting at the same lunch table and you got really profound on something. I forget what we were talking about. It might have been a Legends program or just personal training. And I connected with you there, but I don't think we fully connected until after that when we just jumped on a call together and chatted some stuff out. I think I might have put something in the group, and that's really where the friendship started to blossom, I think.
What I really appreciate about you is you took that step. Like you were at a table, and I think that was your first meetup. Mine was the one previous. And looking back, like just ears open, kind of taking in information. And when I remember even communicating, it kind of felt like I was just talking to a wall, like a wall. Like these, I wasn't really getting much feedback from people, and that was fine. And then a week or two later, you had messaged me and you had mentioned feeling in alignment with a lot of things that were being communicated, and I offered like jumping on a call, and then man, we just realized how similar our values are, our thinking process aligns, and then from there the friendship just really just took off in terms of from there. And so I really appreciate you taking that first step.
Yeah, man, it's interesting. I've always been the type of person that I I cherish relationships that I have with people that are very like-minded.
Mm.
And I am reluctant to jump into those because I'm always listening and I'm always listening to other people. And when I find people speaking, and usually whether it's through conversation or through a table conversation like we had, and I can hear that connection of, I can make a connection with this person. I'm always looking out for that. And then it always usually blossoms into really, really good relationships rather than just trying to talk to everyone, which we'll kind of get into with the question that I had texted you prior to jumping on this and how that kind of affects the whole thing. So, yeah, man, I appreciate our friendship so much. And I know we say it all the time, and it just continues to just be an awesome thing that I have in my life to be able to shoot it back and forth with somebody that is so like minded and understanding.
Yeah, yeah. That's a definitely something I value as well. Do you feel when you were sharing that this curiosity popped into my mind. I can relate in terms of who you let in, that almost like like an onion, like who you let into the core part of that, and then who's like just gets further out. And do you feel that as a human, knowingly or unknowingly, you're like when you see something, you're looking for the connections of congruency and like these things to kind of match and align. Where again, if I think of the group we're in, and maybe we even spoke about this, some people would communicate one way, say even online, and then you have a very different experience face to face that they don't like that's not congruent, and it's a mismatch where I I feel like I personally feel the deeper you can go with someone and maybe allow yourself to connect at higher levels, vulnerability, closer to that core. Obviously, your values are in alignment, but there's more congruency of what's important and what's being said, done, felt, the being, all of that. Would you, does that align with you?
Yeah, 100%. I read a book a while ago called The Courage to Be Disliked, and there is a part in there about horizontal and vertical relationships. And it was kind of really profound where horizontal relationships, which is how I kind of see everything, is that we're all on the same line, we're all on the same journey, we're all just at different points on that same thing, and we're here to help each other. And when you look at life that way, opposed to the general societal vision of this vertical relationship where people are above others or people are further along than others and better than others, you start to realize that people have specialties of things that they can help you with, and you can help other people with the things that you're good at. And when you think about that horizontally, nobody's better than another person, which I feel like in our day and age, especially now with social media, a lot of people are trying to flex that vertical relationship. How far have you come? What have you done? You know, you're trying to influence people that maybe don't have that or are just on their own journey that's separate from yours. And it starts to become this whirlwind that goes on in your head. It's comparison. Comparison is the thief of joy. And I've found that reoccurring in my life consistently, even to this day, in different ways. And when you start to look at it horizontally, it's like, okay, you're going to come across people at points in your life along this journey, your paths are going to cross, and that person's going to be able to offer something to help you along your journey as you start to go forward. And when you just start to view people like that, that nobody's better than one another, but everybody, you know, has some value to offer you if you just, you know, water and grow that relationship, it's a totally different way to look at life. But you also have to be aware that a lot of people that are on their own journey still look at it as a vertical relationship, and they might not think the same way as you, which, you know, tends to, it harms that relationship back and forth, which is why I cherish relationships like ours. You know, very much I know that we're on the same page, that, you know, I help you, you help me, we're just two brothers on this journey together and intersecting at different times to get over the next obstacle. And those are the relationships that I really really cherish in my life. You know, somebody that doesn't view it as I've done this, you should do it my way, but how can we help each other get through
Mm.
this crazy thing called life?
Yeah. And I wonder, I haven't heard it spoken like that, the vertical and the horizontal. And I wonder if you feel like you experience what would be a vertical relationship, like, well, I want less of that or as little of that as possible in terms of because of the depth, the what gets uh given and received, and it's out of proportion to what feels fulfilling as a human being, is like where my mind goes, where like stuff like what we're talking about and maybe relationships like the one that we have, and the ones that I think as humans we aspire to have a core relationship with certain people, they're fewer and far between. And again, it takes this meeting of two people, something I acknowledge in our friendship that I think as men we do really well, that I would imagine men are or could be uncomfortable to do is the balance between a masculine and feminine energy, not identifying as like I have to be overly masculine or I'm too far towards my feminine energy, because as human beings you have both. And I think I reflect back a lot to a conversation we had early on when I was struggling with something, and I don't really remember it was. I was on the call with you and I was just, you know, pouring it out, pouring it out, pouring it out. And very Matthew McConaughey, like you gave me the space and then you just said, me too, brother. And this rings an important point that I always reflect on, a mistake I made as a partner, just in our line of work. Our line of work and maybe more masculine energy is problem solving. We problem solve all day, all the time, from our business to coaching to our teams to our business, and then just in life. And oftentimes when I think about relationships, like it's like tennis, you share something and we can often go to solve that. So I could share something and be like, oh, well, this is what you need to do. Go, blah, 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 blah. Versus the idea that most people want to be seen, heard, felt, and understood. And I always reflect back to that moment and how powerful that was. And I think back to that and how rare that is, and that space you gave and more of that. So it speaks to the pliability of humans and the growth you're putting in. Again, I'm putting in, and what I would aspire or hope people to like think of putting in for themselves because of what it allows in terms of relationships.
Yeah, I think that that's I don't want to say a problem, but I think a very reoccurring theme in life today for many people is that, people that have done things before, the natural reaction is to share and teach and show somebody else the way, which there's nothing wrong with that. And then there's people that are struggling going through some things and they want to find out the answer. And when you bring those two things together, sometimes it becomes this, hey, you need to do it this way. But when you really break that down, those are two people that have two very different circumstances, experiences, different points on the journey. And not to say that it won't work. It very well might work, but I think a lot of people are reluctant to do that critical thinking self work and applying that concept to their own situation to then make the best decision going forward for themselves. Everybody wants to just do what somebody else did because they look at the success that they've had in something without looking at the details of how that came about. And that's where, the other one of definitely the most profound thing that I have ever read or listened to in a book was the part in that Matthew McConaughey book, Green Lights, that said me too. And I think that's a big thing that most people are missing is they just want to hear that they're not alone rather than somebody solving their problems. And when you realize that you're not alone, you can get back to that creative space within yourself and then start to critically think. Because when you think you're alone, you think it's only happening to you, it shades and blocks out that creative space between the ears, and it doesn't allow you to make those decisions yourself.
Yeah, you get locked and trapped in your head. So speaking of the creative flow and energy, let's bring your question of what you texted me. And this is something I value in our friendship is sometimes we'll just ping a question or a thought or something out towards one another. And it doesn't have to be daily. It could be weekly. It could be whatever it needs to be. And so you texted me, and I'll read it how you wrote it to me. You texted me not too long ago, and you said, question: have you ever felt the more people you follow in our space sometimes is overstimulating and brings down your own personal creativity for success for you personally? Do you want to unpack that question and maybe just what that means to you, and kind of we can deep dive?
Yeah, so this whole thought on this topic started probably a year after business ownership. I would find myself uh, looking at other gyms or people. It started on social media, and I'd be like, oh, look what they're doing. And then it would really put a blocker or a blinder or a shade on my own creativity. And what I found over time is that I've proven to myself that I can build a really awesome business and a really awesome gym for my people specifically. And as I started to go through that, I would find these little, steps along the journey where I would get blinded from that. And I'd be like, oh, that person's doing that. Should I be doing that?
Mm-hmm.
Or people would give advice and tell me what they're doing, and then it would start to get my brain circling of, oh, should I do that, when realistically the answer was no. Like, I should be doing exactly what I'm doing and what I feel is right for my community, because time and time again it's proven that the gym is successful and it's changing people's lives. And when I put the blinders on to those outside influences, I always find myself making the best decisions for what I have. And I've been in mentorship and I've had mentors during this whole journey. And it's been one of the best things that I've ever signed up for right from the beginning. And I think it's helped me so much along this journey. But the value that you get from mentorship, you need to understand that none of those mentors have ever been in my gym. They've never seen my situation. They've never met my people. I have that knowledge and I have that data. And when I take other people's, experiences and recommendations and look at things that they've done and hear their story, then I start to pull bits and pieces from multiple people. And then I look at my own situation and I say, oh, I'm going to take a little bit from this, a little bit from that, and a little bit from that. And I'm going to do exactly what's best for my community right now. And those have always been the best decisions. However, this whole thing, and the reason that I texted you today, it's like I said, it started on social media. As I've grown as a business owner and a gym owner, I've found that that same starts to come from an area that you might not have been aware of before, and it sneaks up on you and you don't realize it. Then you start to feel down on yourself, you start to feel not creative, and you wonder why that's that way. And then you go, oh, that same scenario just happened to me, except it wasn't social media, but it was something somebody else had said, or something to along those lines. And I texted it to you because I was curious to get your feedback and maybe hear about different times that you might have felt that and in different scenarios, because I don't think it's healthy mentally for us as creators to expose ourselves and get affected by that too much. But I think bringing awareness to it is the way out of that. And if I can be aware of these different scenarios where that pops up, then I can acknowledge it and I can say, okay, that's not good for me in my mental space right now. Let me push that to the side and just keep doing what I know is right. That's going to get me to my personal success, because my personal success is different than everybody else's, and everybody should have their own.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. You bring up so many good points, and such realness in terms of the human experience. And it's not even limited to business. You could take that concept to life, to what you see people, your friends, your peers doing on social media. We're obviously involved in the fitness space, so you can see that and layers beyond. But really, the kind of the core there is, what I think about when you wrote this is like, um, I thought of the word distraction, like how a lot of things can become distractions and grab our attention, because our attention is the most important thing that we have. Where are we directing that? And of course, as we all underlyingly know, social media wants us on there, on those platforms, and to be kind of glued in. And then you get going down the rabbit hole. It's easy to, see something, and then a thought's going to pop up. We're not even in control of those thoughts. And a different conversation, when I hear, oh, the two things you can control are X and X, and one of those is always like our thoughts. And I disagree to the point where I don't think we can control our thoughts, because you can get impulse thoughts. I think we have a better control of our response to our thoughts. And I think this is what we're mentioning here, is like catching ourselves in awareness to say, hey, either if it's the overstimulation, like I feel really overstimulated right now, that's a feeling. Like I'm feeling overstimulated. What do I need to do to feel better? It's like, okay, maybe I need to put that stuff down. I need to take some time away from that XYZ. So like recognizing the sensation coming up. If we are catching ourselves going down that rabbit hole, do I need to do this? Do I need to do that? I need to again capture self-awareness and say, well, hold on a second. What am I finding myself doing here, and why am I doing that? If I feel like I don't do that, am I less successful? Just like capturing what's really at play. Has my attention got too far? And then, like you mentioned, bringing it back to my vision, my core vision here for insert the thing, myself, my body, my relationship, my business, like whatever that thing is. So again, mindfulness around our attention, distractions. I think something that's helped me in this arena, because I'm of course I've had my mistakes here as well. Being more mindful and protecting and setting boundaries for myself. Maybe there's things I like in terms of the social media platform, just like, man, like maybe the business profile, if I use an example, it's like I'm going to uh, create our post and then I'm going to get off of that platform and like not spend time on there as an example. Um, if something does come up and I catch myself, whether it's the local or far by businesses, um, and you see these things that are happening, like, and you kind of like this sensation comes up. I'm usually pretty good about drawing it back to the core value and vision that I have for my particular business. I think I'm less, that muscle is weaker when it comes to other arenas, like, um, you know, say somebody's vacationing a lot or something. You're like, shit, I need to take a vacation. Like that, I think is the human part of it versus, say the business part. And that's always just a work in progress, like that you have a computer
Yeah.
in your pocket.
I'm curious to see what you think about this. And I truly believe that our mind always goes to business because that's, I mean, kind of the thing that fuels a lot of other things. And I guess our lives outside of it, because you have to put food on the table, you have to have shelter, it's your basic needs, right? So everybody always looks at that first. But to me, and I'm willing to bet that you too, success looks like business, career, relationships, and personal. And they're all the same. You cannot just do one. You cannot let one lag off because you're going to start to get certain feelings that you're not doing enough or whatever it might be. So success needs to be defined by those three things entirely. So whereas we're in a space where we see a lot of business stuff, people often relate it to wealth and money. And I think they often forget about, personal lifestyle and the relationships that they have. And for me personally, you know, uh, it's very easy to get distracted of I need to make more money. I need to make as much money as possible. But
Mhm.
realistically, what do I want in the next 20, 30 years? Well, I want to be an awesome father and I want to be there for that kid and I want to be an awesome husband and I want to continue to help people every single day in the gym and watch their success blossom. And I also want to be able to generate enough wealth to do all those things that are important to me. And that's not an infinite number, which everybody always thinks success is like this infinite number, but there isn't a number. I mean, I guess there is, but you have to do that work to understand. It's like, what is your comfortable, content life that allows you to do the things that you want to do? And then target that number, but don't target it so far that you're letting the other ones fall off. And that's where tying it back to what we were talking about before, a lot of these distractions that you'll see will take you away from your own personal game plan of what's important to you. And
Mhm.
every time I get knocked off my own personal game plan, I start to get this anxiety that I'm not doing enough. But it's not true because I have the plan right there, right in front of me, as to how I see this thing playing out over the next 10, 20, 30 years and what I want for myself. And it's like when I get rid of those distractions and I look back at my plan and I'm like, okay, no, here it is. This is laid out exactly how, my life, I want it to go and what's important to me. I feel content and happy again. But then you go back out into the world, and then those distractions are just getting shot at you again, shot at you again. And again, I think awareness is the biggest piece of this, is to be aware of what is a distraction when it's coming, because they'll disguise themselves in conversations, relationships. They're everywhere. And you just have to, I think the more aware you become, the better you get at recognizing these things. And then you can kind of filter through it, like you said.
Yeah. Yeah. And maybe it boils back to like your priorities. Like you mentioned those three. I view it in my mind's eye now almost like a pyramid, and at the base is self, my relationship with myself, my self-development. And that includes working on myself daily, healing, working through, disempowering thoughts, how I relate to myself, how I talk with myself. Everything that comes out from myself is going to be rippled out into my relationships, my conversations, my business, everything. So if I avoid that arena and try to just become a workaholic, which I have made that mistake in the past, there is a side of that where, yeah, you can become successful and earn an XYZ and still be miserable and unhappy and unfulfilled, and your relationship is not where you want it to be, all those sorts of things. So for me, it's my belief that the foundation is self, and everybody has different methods. We talked about this earlier this week via text of like what that kind of like personal development, self-development realm looks like. And it's probably a little different for everybody. Um, when I watch my partner, who is a full-time nurse, mom, like I feel like this is a feeling, she doesn't require the same um, time and commitment to working on self daily that I know I require. And I can admire that about her. Like she's one of my greatest teachers as a human being. But I know when I've strayed away from that, I have not felt like my best, most optimal self. I have, as a human, I have things I have to continually work through. Like even right now, part of my morning practice is a self-appreciation practice, integrating a more empowering, positive relationship with self. Like those thoughts come up and XYZ. So self is first to me. The next tier I had wrong for so long, and it was business for me. Now you mentioned like we need to earn and money, and I would put business next, and it came at many years and many relationships at the sacrifice of those. And when I started to, it really took something recently to happen for me to reevaluate that needed to shift, or else I was just going to keep running the same potential scenario, and I would have this successful gym doing great things out in the world, but I would be unhappy and unfulfilled at what was most important to me, which was my family, my partner, the kids, that relationship. And at the end of the day, in life, I will look back in terms of impact, positive impact in the world, and be proud. But that will also be probably far behind my life spent with my partner, the kids, the relationship, the memories, the love. And that is what's most important. So I had to shift that. So, second is personal relationships, family. And something we talked about that I think would be great, you mentioned a while back, is like you found yourself sitting at the table with your partner and being like, tell me about your day, tell me about your day. And you caught yourselves kind of just ruminating on the negative parts, or I don't want to misspeak for you, but it was recirculating maybe the challenging parts, and you shifted that. So I want you to share on that before right before you do. Like then the third is, okay, so we got self, we got personal relationships, family, then it is like team and business from there. And that obviously, like that is the shift for me. So share about that dinner experience with your now wife.
Yeah, that was profound for me. And I learned about that specific question and how to go about it from, the greatest of all time, Bonnie from the Tinker Group, which unbelievable. Every time that she talks, there's something profound coming out of it. But I grabbed her when we were in Chicago because I was feeling super down. And, coming home after work, like there'd be a lot of animosity. We'd argue occasionally, and it was tough. And I thought it was me. Like it's this self work that I think everybody should do at some capacity, because when you learn a little bit more about yourself, you can interact with the situations around you much better. And I grabbed her and we sat and we talked for like an hour and a half. And she asked me some questions and we basically got to the point of, well, what do you do when you get home? And I was like, well, she's cooking dinner, and then we sit down and we eat together and we ask each other how our day was. And she goes, okay. And she goes, what's happening there is that when your significant other asks you about how your day went, if by chance that day there were some negative things that happened, your brain immediately reverts, like we all naturally do, to the negative over the positive. So you think about the top three things that frustrated you the most that day, and that's what comes out when that question gets asked, rather than the good things that might have happened. And what that was doing was every time we would think we were doing the right thing by asking each other, how did your day go? We were just bringing up the crap that we dealt with and reliving it essentially together.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, in a time where we should be just spending time together, because work aside, work is done for that day. Like leave it. And it's hard for us to do that and just leave the business as is. We're always thinking about how we can do it better, and it's just a show of how much we care about it, but not at the expense of your own relationships or personal health. Like sometimes you have to just put it to the side. So that was profound for me leaving Chicago, and we stopped asking that question. And it still happens occasionally. That's the thing that people don't get, is when you find these experiences and these things that help you, you think that it's just over with. And like, that's an answer. It's like, no, that question still gets asked regularly. But again, we're both now more aware of it. So when somebody asks that question naturally and we go, hey, let's not ask about that. It's like, what's something good that happened today? Or what do you want to do after dinner? Just completely eliminate it and look forward into the future of how we're going to spend our time together. The nights go way, way better. And, perfect example, last night I was leaving the gym and I was a little bit frustrated because I hadn't filled my coaching cup all week and I wanted to get back on the floor, and I'll find some anxiety and some frustration when that happens. And I called my wife on the way home, and it was just, you could tell I was frustrated, like how I was talking. But again, I was aware of it when we hung up the phone. So I used the rest of the drive home to just get rid of it, take a deep breath, and not bring it into the house with me when we
Mm-hmm.
were going into dinner. And when I walked through the door, I was totally cool, calm, and collected. And I thought about things completely aside from the gym and business, and just focused on having a really good night. And it was great. It was a complete 180 to that mindset shift and that feeling. But it's super important that you don't let those cups spill over into one another. The negative things, the positive things are great. The negative things shouldn't spill over.
Yeah, yeah. It and good on you. I mean, good on you for releasing it and then taking the time to deliberately empty the rest out in your own capacity and then shift it. And it reminds me of so one of those books that I recently sent you. John and I sent each other books over the last 2 weeks, and one was a book about being. And I'm always reminding myself in all situations, intentional in the morning with writing, like, who are you going to choose to be today? Because you're not one thing. Your identity is not fixed. And I even like to choose to address some of my shortcomings or weaker areas as a human, like patience. It's like, I'm going to lean into being patient and create that, because I can create whatever I want. And creating a higher level version of myself means putting intent into that. And for you, it's creating this space to release so you can go home and be a better husband, be a better version of yourself for her, versus creating more pollution through ruminating on something that probably will not matter in tomorrow, the next week, whatever it may be. So that being, like choosing who to be. I'll add a practice that again, just like you mentioned, it's not perfect, but something that my significant other and I work on, um, to draw out the good, because she's an OR nurse, I'm a gym owner, and you're just experiencing these vast array of different experiences in a day. I had a really humbling, tough phone call with a member yesterday who we haven't seen, who has experienced a lot of personal struggle, a lot of death, and I had no idea. And I'm on this call holding space, just showing up as a caring individual. Um, and my significant other at the same in the same day had a very traumatic experience herself with her daughter at the dentist. Almost like the image I see is like her little daughter is strapped down like straitjacket, getting work done, just like screaming, let me go, like, and you're the mother. It's like, so um not storming it into this like this thing, but choosing in that moment for her to like, I know her love language is touch, and just like to embrace her and to also internalize what I just had experienced earlier in the day, because my goodness, we just experienced so much. The practice, ideally at the end of the day, come together and ask one another, okay, what what was 1 to 3 things that you appreciated about your day, or how you showed up within your day? And then you just listened, like you are so great at with the Me Too. Just listen to your partner share, not trying to solve anything, just hear their experience, whether it's about themselves, their day, and just take it in. And when they're done, then it's your turn to share about your day, but you're fully intent listening. And then when you're done with that part one, you go to part two, which is, let me share one thing that I deeply appreciate about you as a human being. And it could be about the day, it could just be about who they are, who you know them to be. And oftentimes we aim to do that in front of the kids too, just so they can see and be modeled, and we can model what healthy, loving communication is, and it's and across from one another. So I sprinkle that on top of your uh wonderful reminder to not shitstorm our troubles from the day, because we have the survival brain that just, again, what you focus on, you will feel. What you will feel, it will disturb you, like, in terms of that context. So I think those two together are so helpful to do more of than less of.
Yeah, and I think I want to reiterate this for whoever, listens to this in the future, is
Mm-hmm.
that just because we have gained this awareness on certain situations doesn't mean we're perfect at it, and it doesn't mean we're good at it. Right. And I want to express this other thing that frustrates me sometimes. I think that there's more, you have to be aware of people in life that tell you rather than listen to you. And this is everywhere. It's everywhere. They tell you how to fix the problem. They want to fix your problem rather than just listening to the problem and then giving you that space, which you do phenomenally. And, just because we've gained the awareness over some of these things through our experiences and we choose to come on a platform like this and share them with other people, hoping that it might help somebody, doesn't mean that when you walk into my house at night that that's exactly how it goes or that it's absolutely perfect. It's something that we're always working on, and I'm sure I will have another bunch of experiences that are related to something or a piece of it that I didn't see before, and hopefully I start to get better at it and create more awareness around it. But when we come on here and we share these things, the intention is to bring awareness to things that we've experienced so that you don't have to figure that out the hard way for yourself. But again, know that it's not perfect, and we're still creating more awareness around it for ourselves as we go through these different experiences. And I hear you say things that you do that helps, and then I'll take that feedback and I'll see, okay, how does this apply to my situation? Can I benefit from that? Could this help us? And whatever our iteration of that looks like, try it, because if it helps somebody else, maybe it will help us. But it doesn't have to look exactly the same. It doesn't have to be your exact process. It has to be what works for you in your specific situation. to benefit your life.
Yeah, I love that point of when something connects for you, it doesn't have to be done exactly to the T that you heard or interpreted it. It's like you're trying on a pair of shoes. Take what aspects of that, like you mentioned, and I think about this within our Tinker group, which is a higher level business mentorship group. Take what works and eliminate everything else that doesn't for you. And if it doesn't work, like it's just another opportunity along the way to see what makes sense and see what doesn't make sense for you. And when you were sharing that, I think something we both embody is a student minded mentality, even if there's a higher level of comprehension, execution, experience from coaching. I view myself as a great coach, equally never resting on those laurels and are always continuing to learn. I actually just signed up for this course. I would highly recommend you check it out. Prescript level 1, like that. I'm going to just further densify my education. I just love learning. Relationships, my partner, like I aspire to be an amazing partner. And I am also equally aware, like I am always learning, making mistakes, growing, and can be better every single day in every arena of my life. And I think that applies to the message here of like student mentality, love learning. And when we're out here, like that's why I love the idea of like take what you need from this whole thing. If somebody took like, don't have negative conversations over dinner, amazing. We talked about a lot of things. It's like take what you need, apply it, mold it, or edit what makes sense for us as human beings, and then just discard, or come back to, or just eliminate altogether what doesn't serve you.
Yeah. And I'll bring this full circle back to the horizontal relationships. As you see these things, and never stop learning, always look
Mm.
to learn a little bit more, but understand that whether you're watching this on YouTube or whether you hear about what somebody else does or whatever it might be, understand that we're all on the same level. Well, we're all having this new education and these new experiences, and the best thing that we can do is share those so that you can take those bits and pieces and learn from each other to ultimately become collectively better. And, when you see people telling you exactly how to do something, there's value there. There is, because it's the same thing, it's just being projected a different way. Just understand that their experience is valuable and pick apart those pieces of their experience and then learn how to apply it to yourself and take that horizontal relationship or that vertical relationship that they see and just flip it and make it horizontal for yourself. So you're on the same playing field, you're on the same journey. Take their experiences and apply them to you so that we can all collectively get better.
Mm. Yeah, John, great. Listen, want to be mindful of your time. I appreciate all the shares, all the information today, and we'll definitely jump on here and chop it up some more, brother.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate it.
Got it. Thank you.